you know that in Filipina dating culture, physical intimacy ranks as merely NIH on the interest scale? This reality differs dramatically from Western expectations about relationship signals. In this video, I'm breaking down 36 signs a Filipino likes you into 4 distinct tiers. You'll discover which behaviors truly indicate she sees you as husband material versus which mean nothing at all. Ever noticed how some Filipinas become extra shy around certain men? The meaning behind this common behavior might surprise you, along with dozens of other cultural signals Westerners frequently misinterpret when dating in the Philippines. So, you met a Filipina, things got hot and heavy on the first date, and now you're mentally picking out furniture together. I hate to burst your bubble, but in our dating tier system, that falls squarely into the image category. Why? Because what Western men often consider the ultimate sign of interest can mean something completely different in Filipino dating culture. For many Western guys, physical intimacy represents a significant milestone, a clear signal that a relationship is progressing to something serious. You might think, she wouldn't have shared that experience if she didn't see a future with me. This assumption makes perfect sense in many Western dating contexts, where physical intimacy often follows emotional connection. But here's where Filipino culture flips the script. Physical connection and emotional investment operate on entirely separate tracks. What seems like a meaningful step forward to you might simply be a casual encounter for her, one that doesn't necessarily indicate deeper feelings or intentions for a serious relationship. This cultural disconnect developed over decades of tourism and foreign presence in the Philippines, creating spaces where casual relationships between locals and foreigners became normalized. In these contexts, physical intimacy operates differently from the traditional Filipino values that govern regames between two Filipinos. Mark's experience illustrates this perfectly. He met Angela at a bar in Makati. Their chemistry was instant, and by the end of the night, they ended up back at his hotel. For 2 weeks, they met regularly. With Angela staying over most nights, Mark was already planning to extend his visa, convinced he'd found the one. But when he suggested meeting her family, Angela suddenly became distant and eventually ghosted him. "I thought we were building something real," he told me later. She seemed so into me. What he interpreted as the beginning of something meaningful was for her a fun but temporary connection. Filipinas who engage in casual relationships aren't being deceptive. The cultural frameworks for interpreting these actions are simply many can compartmentalize physical attraction from emotional commitment, especially in relationships with foreigners, that they might subconsciously categorize differently from potential long-term partnerships. To navigate these differences, I've developed a 4-tier system for understanding Filipina dating behavior. MOH tier represents actions that foreigners often misinterpret as significant but carry little weight in signaling serious interest. Physical intimacy, especially early in the relationship, falls here. As one client bluntly put it, she slept with me on the first date because she thought I was cute, not because she was planning our wedding. The 50-50 tier includes behaviors that could indicate interest but aren't conclusive. They require more context to interpret correctly. The jowa zone. Jowa, meaning boyfriend-girlfriend in Filipino slang, represents actions showing legitimate interest in establishing a defined relationship, though not necessarily long-term commitment. The wife zone encompasses behaviors indicating a Filipina is considering you as potential husband material. Signals that rarely get misinterpreted because they align with core Filipino values. James's story further highlights the importance of this framework. He spent 3 months in what he thought was a relationship with a Filipina who was physically affectionate but never introduced him to friends, always met him at his hotel, and avoided discussing the future. "We had such amazing chemistry," he explained. "I thought that meant something." He was shocked when she announced her engagement to her long-term Filipino boyfriend, someone she'd been dating throughout their affair. This isn't about generalizing all relationships between foreigners and Filipinos. Many genuine, loving relationships start with physical attraction. The key is recognizing that physical intimacy alone doesn't carry the same cultural significance it might in Western dating. What truly matters to Filipinos seeking serious relationships goes beyond physical connection. It involves seeing how you integrate with their values, family structures, and life goals. A Filipino who's genuinely interested in building a future demonstrates it through actions that require investment of her resources, her time, trust, social capital, and sometimes even her limited finances. In the Philippines, where family ties run deep and community connections shape identity, the most meaningful indicators of interest involve bringing you into those sacred circles. Physical intimacy simply doesn't carry that weight. It's easily given without the accompanying emotional investment that defines committed relationships. This isn't about judging either cultural perspective. Western directness and Filipino indirectness both have their place. The goal is to help you accurately read the signals so you don't invest emotionally in situations that aren't what they seem. The "I love you" trap. Cultural differences don't just affect how physical interactions are interpreted. They completely transform the meaning of what many consider the most important phrase in any relationship. When a Filipina says "I love you" after knowing you for just days, is she expressing deep emotion, or is something entirely different happening beneath the surface? In Western dating culture, "I love you" functions as a relationship milestone, a significant declaration marking a new stage of commitment. It's reserved until feelings develop and both people feel secure in their connection. This creates emotional whiplash when foreign men hear these words from a Filipina they've only been chatting with online for a week. Filipino communication patterns prioritize social harmony, positive feelings, and maintaining good relationships above literal precision. For many Filipinos, "I love you" is more akin to saying "have a nice day" in American culture, a warm sentiment that maintains positive connection rather than a profound declaration of commitment. This is why it falls squarely into our MEH tier of significance, a preliminary expression requiring substantial backup before being taken as a serious indicator. Mark from Australia learned this lesson the hard way. After just 2 weeks of video calls with Angelica from Cebu, she began ending every conversation with "I love you." Interpreting this through his cultural lens, Mark felt they were on a fast track to commitment. He spent 3 months planning an elaborate trip, even looking at potential apartments where they could live after marriage. When he finally arrived in the Philippines, he was confused to find Angelica treating him more like a new friend than romantic partner. She had meant her words sincerely in the moment, but they hadn't carried the promise Mark had assumed. This communication pattern stems partly from the Filipino value of pakikisama, maintaining smooth interpersonal relationships. Some Filipinos express affection verbally to maintain a pleasant connection, especially if they sense the foreign man expects such words. This doesn't mean dishonesty. The cultural understanding of what these words signify differs significantly. Jason from Canada shared, "When Maria first told me she loved me after our third video call, I was caught off guard but thrilled. Then I noticed she would say it to her cousins, neighbors, and even to the saleswoman who helped her pick out a dress. That's when I realized 'I love you' meant something different in her world than in mine." The ease of saying "I love you" contrasts sharply with demonstrating love through consistent actions. Words cost nothing, whereas actions require investment of time, energy, and resources, revealing someone's true priorities. This distinction becomes especially important in cross-cultural relationships where misaligned expectations lead to emotional confusion. So how can you distinguish between casual expressions and genuine affection? The answer lies in consistency in actions that align with verbal expressions. A Filipina who truly sees you as a potential partner will demonstrate her interest through behaviors requiring effort. Does she remember details about your life and follow up on things you've shared? Is she willing to introduce you to people who matter in her life? Does she make adjustments to her schedule to spend time with you? Does she show interest in your culture, family, and life beyond immediate interaction? These behaviors speak volumes more than a quick "I love you." They indicate an investment in knowing you as a person rather than just maintaining a pleasant connection. The contrast between Western and Filipino communication styles doesn't mean either is superior. The directness valued in Western communication promotes clarity, while the harmony-centered Filipino approach maintains positive relationships. The key is recognizing these differences and adjusting expectations accordingly. When receiving an early "I love you" from a Filipina, you're getting to know. The healthiest response is appreciation coupled with patience. Take it as a sign of goodwill rather than binding commitment, and let time reveal whether actions align with words. Remember that in Filipino dating culture, "I love you" is the beginning of a conversation about feelings, not the conclusion Western men might interpret it to be. This is why such expressions fall into our MEH tier, pleasant to hear, but requiring substantial backup before being considered significant indicators of serious interest. The most accurate assessment of intentions comes from observing patterns over time rather than celebrating isolated verbal expressions. Words change with moods and circumstances, but consistent actions reveal genuine priorities and feelings. Money matters. The ultimate truth serum. When it comes to cross-cultural relationships in the Philippines, money serves as a powerful truth serum. The economic reality creates a lens through which both parties view financial interactions, but these views rarely align. Many Western men arrive with good intentions, but fundamentally misunderstand what financial exchanges actually signal. Actions speak louder than words, but financial decisions scream the truth. In a country where the average monthly salary hovers around $500, a Filipina's willingness to spend her hard-earned pesos on you reveals more about her feelings than 1,000 "I love yous" ever could. What happens when she reaches for the bill might surprise you. The economic context makes this clearer. The average Filipino family earns around 22,000 pesos monthly, approximately $400, what many Westerners might spend on a weekend getaway. This disparity shapes relationship dynamics in ways foreigners often misinterpret. In the Filipino dating scene with foreigners, asking for financial assistance falls squarely in the NH category. It doesn't indicate serious romantic interest. In fact, it often suggests she views you primarily as a resource rather than a romantic partner. Consider this scenario. You've been chatting with a Filipina for a few weeks when she mentions her brother needs money for college tuition. She asks if you can help with 300 dirhams. Your first thought might be, she trusts me enough to ask for help. This must mean she sees a future with us. Unfortunately, this interpretation is far from reality. Michael from Canada learned this lesson the hard way. After meeting Rose online, he quickly developed what he thought was a deep connection. Within 2 months, he had sent over $2,000 for various family emergencies. "I thought I was building trust," Michael explained. "But when I visited the Philippines, she always seemed too busy to spend time with me." By responding to these requests without establishing boundaries, Michael had inadvertently categorized himself as a provider rather than a partner. The real revelation comes when you observe the opposite direction of financial flow. When a Filipina spends her own money on you, particularly when that money represents a significant portion of her income, you've entered an entirely different category in her mind. Imagine you're at a cafe in Manila with a woman you've been dating. The bill comes to 500 pesos, around 9, not much to you, but potentially a day's wages for her. When she insists on paying despite your protests, this gesture carries enormous weight in Filipino culture. This financial reversal represents one of the strongest indicators of genuine interest. A Filipina who spends her limited resources on you is demonstrating through sacrifice what she may not express verbally, that you occupy a special place in her priorities. The financial direction, whether money flows from you to her or from her to you, reveals how she categorizes your relationship. Does she see you as a provider, MEH tier, a potential partner worth investing in, Joe zone, or someone she values enough to sacrifice for, wife zone? Leah, a teacher from Cebu, explains, "When I really care about someone, I want to show them I'm not interested in their money. I might save for weeks to treat them to a nice dinner, even though they could easily afford it. It's about showing them they mean more to me than financial comfort." With approximately 16.7% of Filipinos living below the poverty line, financial decisions carry heightened significance. Many Filipinos support extended family members or save diligently for future security. Choosing to allocate resources to a relationship partner represents a profound statement of priority. This financial truth serum works because it's difficult to fake. Words can be manipulated, but consistent financial sacrifice requires genuine emotional investment. The woman who reaches for the bill, brings thoughtful gifts, or prepares special meals has placed you firmly in the wife zone. Greg, from Australia, shares a defining moment. "I knew Maria was serious when she insisted on paying for our lunch after I learned she'd worked overtime the entire week before. That 600 peso meal represented hours of her labor. No words could have expressed her feelings more clearly." A Filipina spending her own money on you ranks as one of the most reliable indicators of serious interest because it demonstrates valuing you above immediate material comfort, a significant statement in a country where economic security remains a daily concern for many. Contrast this with David's experience. "I'd been sending Lisa money for months, but when I visited and found myself paying for absolutely everything, even small things she could afford, I finally understood where I stood. She never once offered to pay for even a bottle of water." The kitchen connection. Why cooking speaks louder than words? Time reveals true intentions where money and words fall short. While many foreigners think constant texting signals deep interest, in Filipino culture, this digital presence barely registers on the significant scale. Most Filipinos maintain active text conversations with dozens of contacts throughout the day. It's simply part of their social fabric, not a special honor reserved for romantic interests. When a Filipina invites you to her home and spends hours preparing traditional Filipino food, especially for you, you've crossed from the me category into the wife zone territory. Few foreigners recognize the significance. Digital communication requires minimal commitment. A message takes seconds to send and can be directed to multiple recipients simultaneously. Joseph from California learned this distinction. "Mia would text me constantly, 'Good morning, good night,' checking in throughout the day. I felt so special. But 6 months in, I realized she had never invited me to her home for a meal she cooked. When I met her family accidentally at the mall, they seemed surprised she was dating anyone. Those texts meant nothing." In contrast, cooking represents a sequence of intentional choices and actions that cannot be easily divided or replicated. The exclusivity of this effort distinguishes it from casual interactions. To understand why this matters so much, you need to appreciate the central role food plays in Filipino culture. Sharing meals is the primary way Filipinos express care, maintain connections, and strengthen bonds. When Emma, an English teacher from Davao, spent an entire Saturday shopping for ingredients and cooking adobo for her American boyfriend, the rich aroma filling her small apartment represented an act deeply rooted in Filipino traditions of nurturing and devotion. What makes cooking such a powerful indicator is the multiple layers of investment it represents. First, there's the economic aspect. In a country where many households operate on tight budgets, Allocating funds, specifically for special ingredients, represents a conscious financial choice. When Janine from Cebu spent nearly 2,000 pesos, over 10% of her monthly salary, on ingredients for a feast to impress her Canadian suitor, she was making a statement about his importance that transcended words. Then there's the time investment. Traditional Filipino dishes aren't quick convenience meals. Authentic kare-kare requires soaking and simmering oxtail for hours, the savory broth slowly developing complex flavors. Proper sinigang demands fresh ingredients and careful balance of sour and savory elements. When a Filipina dedicates half her precious day off to preparing these dishes, she's investing her most limited resource. Consider Ryan's experience in Bacolod. I thought Maria and I were just casual friends until she invited me over and had prepared 7 different dishes, including her family's special lacon recipe that takes 24 hours to make properly. A friend later told me no one outside family had ever tasted that dish before. The learning curve matters too. Many younger urban Filipinas haven't mastered traditional cooking techniques, focusing instead on education and careers. When one makes the effort to call her mother or grandmother for recipes specifically to cook for you, it demonstrates extraordinary commitment. As Anna from Manila explained, I never bothered learning my Lola's pancit recipe until I met David. Something about him made me want to connect him to my heritage through food. The context of presentation reveals even more. When a Filipina cooks in her family home with relatives present, she's publicly declaring your importance. Filipino families are notoriously protective, especially of daughters. Bringing you into this intimate space and serving you food, she prepared signals family approval that casual relationships rarely receive. This home-cooked meal is essentially an audition for the heart, a glimpse into potential shared domestic life where traditional values blend with modern relationships. The meticulously arranged plate, the anxious watch for your reaction to the first bite, the insistence on second helpings. These are rituals reserved for those considered worthy of family inclusion. Filipino cooking traditions involve personalization that demonstrates attentiveness. When Liza prepared bangsilog for breakfast but made the egg exactly as Thomas preferred, not too runny, she showed she paid attention to his preferences. When Diane packaged leftovers for Mark, carefully including extra sauce because she noticed he enjoyed it, she communicated care through observation. Craig from Melbourne observed this transition. Leah was always warm in our conversations, but maintained professional boundaries. The first time she invited me for a home-cooked meal, something shifted. Her grandmother was there, teaching her techniques for specific dishes. I later learned this was essentially a family audition, seeing how I fit into their traditions. 6 months later, she accepted my proposal. What makes cooking such a definitive wife's own indicator is that it combines practical skills with emotional investment in a way that's difficult to fake or maintain without genuine interest. A woman might text daily out of habit or politeness, but few will repeatedly invest hours in food preparation for someone they don't truly value. Sacred invitations reveal more than paradise getaways ever could. While you might be ecstatic about that weekend trip to Boracay with your Filipino friend, understanding what this actually signifies in Filipino culture could save you from misreading the situation entirely. For many foreigners, being invited on a romantic beach vacation seems like crossing a meaningful relationship threshold, but in reality, it barely registers on the significant scale for most Filipinos. The church test. Faith as a relationship indicator. The Philippines offers breathtaking destinations, from Palawan's white shores to Bohol's chocolate hills. For Filipinos who grow up amid these natural wonders, beach trips are primarily recreational, chances to relax and escape daily pressures. Domestic travel reached 222 million trips annually before the pandemic, making vacations regular occurrences rather than romantic milestones. Approximately 86% of Filipinos identify as Roman Catholic, with another 8% belonging to other Christian denominations. Over 80% of Filipino Catholics attend church at least monthly, with more than half attending weekly. This religious commitment permeates Filipino culture, from holidays to daily decisions. For women especially, faith forms an integral part of identity. 95% of girls participate in religious activities like prayer groups or church choirs by their teenage years. What Western men often miss is a simple truth: recreational activities don't carry the weight of spiritual inclusion. A Filipino might enjoy resort time with you without seeing long-term potential. Father James Reyes, a parish priest in Quezon City, explains, "When a Filipino family brings someone to Mass, they're saying this person matters enough to share in the most fundamental aspect of their identity." Consider Antonio's experience in Bacolod. After dating Teresa for 3 months, she invited him to Lacawan Island. "I thought we were getting serious," he recalls. "We had a fantastic time, but when I tried to discuss our future, she seemed uncomfortable." His confusion cleared when a colleague explained beach trips are for fun. Church introductions are for potential husbands. Contrast this with Justin's story from Davao. After just 6 weeks of dating Catherine, she asked if he'd attend Sunday Mass with her family. "I was surprised by how formal it felt," he says. "Her mother inspected my outfit, her father quizzed me about my values, and relatives happened to stop by afterward." Justin had unknowingly stepped into an informal family assessment, one Catherine initiated because she saw legitimate potential in their relationship. Most importantly, she's signaling she considers you worthy of integration into sacred aspects of her existence. Anthropologist Roberto Mendoza explains, in traditional Filipino communities, bringing someone to church represents a public declaration that this person has passed initial evaluations and is now being presented for community approval. When a Filipina swaps flip-flops for formal shoes and invites you to church, she's orchestrating several significant events simultaneously. She's presenting you to immediate and extended family in a controlled setting, while introducing you to her spiritual community, including lifelong friends, godparents, and respected elders whose opinions matter in her decisions. This spiritual inclusion extends beyond attendance. Pay attention to how she integrates you. Does she help you follow prayer books? Introduce you to the parish priest? Invite you to church celebrations like Santo Niño festivals? Each action demonstrates her vision of you sharing her cultural and spiritual practices. Parish churches serve as community centers where crucial life transitions are celebrated, from baptisms to weddings to funerals. By including you in this space, she's metaphorically writing you into her life story, imagining how you might fit into future ceremonies. Jonathan, an Australian who married his Filipino wife, Elena, recounts the moment he realized their relationship had shifted. "We'd been dating for about 2 months when she casually mentioned her mother wanted to meet me at Sunday Mass. During the service, her mother watched my reactions. Afterward, 3 aunts coincidentally joined us for lunch. It felt more significant than meeting her parents in any other context." Church attendance is a definitive wife zone indicator because it connects to how Filipinas envision future family structure. Research shows 78% of Filipino women consider shared religious values extremely important in selecting a life partner, ranking above financial stability and attraction. By bringing you into her spiritual community, she's conducting a compatibility assessment on an aspect that will shape how she raises children and structures family traditions. A weekend in Boracay creates memories, but an invitation to stand beside her during communion creates potential futures. Diego from Spain dated Mariel for 6 months in Manila, enjoying nightlife, beaches, and family dinners, yet was confused when she ended things. What he missed was her subtle invitation to attend her cousin's first communion, an opportunity he declined for a diving trip. To Mariel, this choice revealed a values misalignment no chemistry could overcome: transparency and sacrifice. The ultimate wife zone indicated beyond the sacred spaces and family introductions lies an even more revealing territory most foreigners completely overlook. When a Filipina cancels long-standing plans with friends to spend time with you instead, she's making a statement far more significant than any verbal declaration or casual introduction could ever convey. Meeting a Filipina's family is often considered a major milestone by Western standards. However, in Filipino culture, these introductions can be more pragmatic than profound. Many Filipinas live with extended family well into adulthood, making parental meetings an almost unavoidable reality rather than a carefully timed gesture of commitment. Approximately 65% of unmarried Filipino adults between 25 and 35 still live with their parents or extended family, notes Dr. Angela Reyes, cultural anthropologist at De La Salle University. This creates situations where meeting family happens by necessity rather than by a relationship progression. Robert from Wisconsin experienced this firsthand when Mia invited him to her family home in Batangas after just 2 weeks of dating. "I thought we were on a fast track to marriage," he recalls. "Then I realized her family was constantly around. It wasn't special, it was practically unavoidable." What truly distinguishes casual interest from wife zone potential is what happens after these introductions. Does she maintain boundaries between you and certain areas of her life, or does she grant you unprecedented access to her world? In traditional Filipino culture, maintaining appropriate social boundaries is deeply ingrained. Young women are often raised to keep certain aspects of their lives private. When a Filipina breaks down these barriers and shares her complete, unfiltered reality with you, it represents an extraordinary level of trust. Filipinas are taught from childhood to present an image of harmony to the outside world, explains Dr. Ricardo Santos from the University of the Philippines. When they allow someone to see their family's internal conflicts or financial challenges, they've mentally reclassified that person from outsider to insider. This is remarkably rare. Marco from Italy dated Janine for 8 months, but remained outside her inner circle. She'd introduced me to her parents, but when her sister got sick, I wasn't told until weeks later. She kept financial struggles and family arguments completely hidden. Despite physical intimacy, I remained on the outside looking in. Contrast this with Stefan's experience when his girlfriend Christine called him in tears about a family debt crisis threatening her brother's education. That moment of vulnerability changed everything. She trusted me with something she hadn't even told her closest friends. I'd crossed an invisible threshold in her life. Perhaps even more telling is her willingness to rearrange priorities for you. In Filipino culture, social obligations carry immense weight. Birthday celebrations, family gatherings, and commitments to friends are treated as sacred duties. According to research, 89% of Filipinos rate keeping social commitments as extremely important compared to just 54% of Americans. This creates a powerful context for understanding what it means when a Filipina shifts the axis of her world to accommodate you. Canceling on a cousin's birthday celebration affects relationships throughout an extended family network, explains cultural consultant Maria Fernandez. When a Filipina makes this choice, she's accepting substantial social consequences that most foreigners can't comprehend. Alan from Canada remained confused about where he stood with Diane from Cebu. She'd say she loved me and introduced me to everyone, but whenever I suggested last-minute plans, she always had prior commitments. I was always being fitted into her existing schedule, never prioritized above other obligations. The contrast became clear with Peter's experience when his girlfriend, Michelle, abruptly left her cousin's engagement celebration. an almost unheard of breach of Filipino etiquette when she learned Peter had food poisoning. The family called repeatedly, clearly upset. She simply said, "He needs me more right now," and stayed the night making sure I was okay. This willingness to prioritize you over deeply ingrained social expectations is the clearest signal that you've entered the wife's home. It indicates she's mentally reordered her world with you at the center, a position traditionally reserved for family. What makes these indicators powerful is their subtlety. They aren't grand gestures designed for public consumption, but authentic choices that come with real social costs, revealing genuine priorities rather than calculated moves. The loudest declarations of love come through quiet sacrifices, observes relationship counselor Gabriela Torres. When a Filipina chooses transparency and prioritizes your needs, despite cultural pressures, she's demonstrating a commitment that runs deeper than words ever could. The significance lies in the willingness to reorder priorities. Has she altered Sunday family lunch, a weekly institution in many Filipino homes, to accommodate your schedule? Has she shared financial worries that would typically remain within family boundaries? These subtle shifts signal the most profound form of inclusion. So there we have it, gentlemen. After exploring all 4 tiers, we've uncovered what truly matters when a Filipina shows interest. The flashy gestures and quick physical intimacy pale compared to her willingness to invest her most precious resources. When she sacrifices her limited finances, integrates you into her faith community, or rearranges her sacred social calendar, she's demonstrating genuine commitment. These cultural signals reveal authentic connection beyond surface behaviors. You'll recognize when someone values your character rather than your wallet. Are you ready to read between the lines of Filipino tradition and modern romance? Remember this wisdom: consistent actions reveal truth. Occasional words may conceal it.